There will be no Rick rolling to start this show. Good morning, everybody. It's Bob
too
Harris,
late.
Matt Roberts. It is too late. I might have Rick rolled somebody. Never want to let him go. He is Matt Waldman of the Rookie Scouting Portfolio. We are here to feel and fuck things and help you gain a little information. Right now, the Rookie Scouting Portfolio is out and available. If you're one of the 10 people on Earth who do not have one, go get it now. Matt, tell them what they'll find.
Yeah, 164 profiles on quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. 1,267 pages. Lots of great analysis in terms of scouting reports, rankings, cheat sheets, histories on these positions and how they're evolving and how that can impact you as a fantasy player as well as an NFL fan of the teams that you are following. And then you get a post-draft, and that's, while the pre-draft is kind of football approved with some fantasy insights that'll help you think philosophically about how you should be building your teams and building through the rookie draft. Then we get practical about it at a high level, and talk about, we factor in draft capital and schemes, and we study the depth charts of all the, where these players are going to, and you get a cheat sheet that's basically 2 pages, and you get a chance to have everybody tiered and everybody re-ranked according to some of those factors. And if I don't re-rank them because I think they're that good, then I give you an X value that helps you see when you should draft this player so that you can maximize the value without getting sniped. And I do that by studying a bunch of drafts. So you get all of this for $21.95, and a newsletter that comes out regularly throughout the year that gives you kind of previews of 2027 prospects. So it's a great deal, and I appreciate the feedback thus far, and the people who are continue to be lifetime subscribers and write me and tell me that I should charge double, or when they make mistakes and they buy the projections and dynasty rankings that I do, which I charge more for. They're like, listen, just keep the money and give me the $21.95 product and cancel out the other one, or they'll buy the other one in addition to it and say it's more than worth to have both. And
I get it all. That's just me though. You follow Matt on the X and Bluesky at Matt Waldman. I'm at Football Diehard. You can find my work at Football Guys right now, weekly notebook.
You won't regret it. You really won't. It's mostly substance, very low on frills.
No frills. There's lots of frills. Everyone likes the frills, Matt. Except some of the NFL teams, some frilly players. Let's not say that about this fellow. 188 pounds. Wake Forest running back Desmon Claiborne. Is he big enough to be a difference maker? Feel it or fuck it?
I'm feeling it in the right scheme and the offense with the right attitude. And that's the tough part, is finding a coach and a GM who are aligned in that attitude that the guy can be that way. I mean, look at James Cook, who's about 194, 195 pounds. I don't think Claiborne's more than a cheeseburger or two away from that. And I think he'll probably add 5 to 7 pounds anyway, in muscle. And he's got a proven track record in terms of volume and being able to work between the tackles. His fumble rate skyrocketed last year. He had 7 last year alone, but he only had 2 for the other 3 years that he was a starter. He's a very smart runner, and he might be pound for pound the best playmaker in this class because of his speed, because how he can change pace, and how he can manipulate defenders. There's a lot of there's a lot of Shady McCoy to his game in the way that he plays. And I think that he's one of those guys that, like Jamal Charles, he can also kind of dictate the chain of action with physical play without getting creamed. So he's a really good football player, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jeremiah Love does not play to the expectation we have of him. I would not be shocked if Desmon Claiborne winds up being the best back in this class.
So if I guess you think of some of these players out there, I can go back for work done. I mean, there's been plenty of guys that weren't huge bodies, but I think there's this that mythical 200-pound thing, which we see time and time again go by the wayside. What kind of team would best suit does Desmon Claiborne?
I think really we're just looking for a team. I mean, you look at the Bills and what they did with James Cook, and so you can have a gap style offense that uses two tight ends and has a strong runner at the quarterback position, and that could work out. You could see how Claiborne might be the dash to Cam Scatterbo's smash in New York under John Harbaugh. That could be a really nice complement where you get a 1-2 punch that's strong, and maybe have guys like that. I think those, think of like Chubb and Woody Marks last year with Claiborne as a better version of Woody Marks. I could see him on a team like that where, I'm trying to think of, maybe the Steelers decide that they want to have a guy who can complement Rico Dowdle in a way that when Jaylen Warren leaves the Steelers at some point, that would be the case. So those are a few of the teams. If Denver decided, hey, we really like this kid, and they can get him a little bit later, he could compete with R.J. Harvey, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's a smarter runner than R.J. Harvey is, if you ask me. And Harvey's nice. I don't think that's going to happen, but those are some of the places. I think you're going to see Damon Claiborne, though, probably wind up being a 4th or 5th round pick at best, and he's going to have to work his way up. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Another guy in that day 3 range, Nicholas Singleton. He's bigger, 220, nearly 220. Good history of production. Should he go higher than his designated day 3 value? Feel it or fuck it?
I think his talent is higher than that. I just think that the nature of the running back position is probably going to limit him from doing so. But I think you're going to get a bargain in the same way that maybe the Green Bay Packers just got a bargain in signing Damian Martinez from last year to its roster. Singleton is a very good receiver, like you said. He was very strong early on in his career when he got the opportunity. But you just got to remember their quarterback was not very good. They did a lot of manufacturing of offense to help their quarterback, and they also wanted to keep recruits at running back like a lot of teams do. I mean, we could look back and say Nick Chubb was much better than DeAndre Swift or Sony Michel, but he had to split time with Michel, and I think that they even tried to force feed Swift in there, if I remember correctly, early on. You can look at situations like that and feel like, oh well, maybe Katron Allen is really good then, and or that Singleton's not as good as we thought. I think it's just more about we need to keep recruits that we want to keep, and by doing that is giving them playing time in the NIL era, which and even before then, that's why they commoditized running backs. And I think Singleton's a guy who's capable of being more than what we've seen from him in the past couple of years.
All right, fair enough. I guess running backs are always interesting, in that range. You never know who's going to pop up. A wide receiver, a little different there. Jacoby Lane, does he have greater potential than his projected role player status? Feel it or fuck it?
Oh, absolutely feel it. But is he going to fulfill it? I would say fuck it if I had to make a choice. If I had to make a really tough choice, I would say that, because the hands are fantastic, the body control's strong, the route running needs improvement, and a lot of it is kind of sloppy. I would say sloppy, and I don't want to say thoughtless, but kind of flaky in terms of how he does stuff.
It's interesting. The RSP comps are George Pickens and Chris Henry, the late Chris Henry. So interesting, great players with a little bit of mercurial, to say the least. There, are we putting them in that same basket?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say that Jacoby Lane is, the least mercurial of the George Pickens, Chris Henry vibe is Chris Brazzell. Probably mid-range flakiness is probably Lane. So you can see the moments, and you can see if he gets it together, that's great. But when one of my who was Fred, who was the wide receiver, his first name was Fred Gibson. when Chad Ryder said to me, "Why do I feel a Fred Gibson vibe whenever I watch Jacoby Lane?" That's kind of the fear right there.
Ted Hurst, Georgia State. These two players stand out to me. You know why? They're 6'4". I like these bigger wide receivers with some athleticism. Does he have greater potential than his projected role player value?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if he can really refine his route running, and I think there's reasons to believe that he could, and he plays with a level of dynamic athleticism that we see flashes of, that maybe he could be an aspiring A.J. Green, a guy who's maybe, an upper middle class A.J. Green during his career. So maybe not giving you 1,500 yard seasons, but maybe can give you 1,000, 1,100 yards and somewhere between 6 to 8 touchdowns. And you're using him as a fantasy starter. And maybe he has 1 year that's off the charts good due to an injury or great quarterback play. So yeah, if not though, I think that he can still give you the go up and get it of T. Higgins and be kind of more of a T. Higgins, Mike Williams type of number 2 option who's still a compelling fantasy value at his peak.
Yeah, I'm just now a text coming across my device. He will be visiting Hurst, the Giants, Packers, and Chiefs this very week.
Okay.
So there we have that. Quarterbacks, Diego Pavia, a Vanderbilt quarterback with an interesting route, an upward trajectory. Can he keep that upward trajectory going? Can he become one of the best 3 quarterbacks in this draft class? Feel it or fuck it.
Okay, so talent-wise, could he become one of the top three quarterbacks in this draft class when it's all said and done? Fuck yes, he can. Will he? Do you want to bet on that? Fuck no, because the NFL seems to be making a concerted effort to let everybody know about his foibles off the field, and that there's some thoughts that maybe he's not a good guy. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. And NFL teams, sometimes the way they practice the character evaluation, don't know that well or not. There's still a lot of teams that, let's just say that their skill at interviewing and who they assign the task of interviewing and discerning the information isn't very good. But I would say that on the field, Diego Pavia's processing speed is very strong. He's an aggressive, physical football player for his size. He's like, if it's like pouring Red Bull and vodka into Flutie Flakes. That's basically what it's the breakfast of champions. And I think the little hot sauce to it too, to boot, might be a little bit a part of the equation there. So if you can stomach all that, I think you might find out that you're having a really good time with Diego Pavia as your journeyman starter quarterback or your backup who can come in and just rip a hole into defenses occasionally.
Is it like 5'10", 207 pounds of size, kind of the immediate, barrier?
Yeah. That and the fact that he thinks he's a fullback at the end of runs, in the SEC.
It feels like we're talking about Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, there's a little Baker Mayfield attitude with that. But where Baker was probably drinking like wine spritzers, Diego's doing the vodka and the Red Bull.
Jonah Coleman, Washington running back, 5'8", 220 pounds. That would be like a bowling ball. Is he overrated? Feel it or fuck it?
I think he is. Obviously, if we're going to look at the consensus and see that I'm alone on an island here, because I think a lot of people have him as like a top 5 to top 7 running back, and I don't have him remotely there. It's mainly because his grade is good enough for him to make an NFL roster. I could see him having a situational role for a team, but I don't think that his acceleration and his speed and his vision are compelling enough for me to believe that he can hold down a starting role year after year while he's healthy. I did not think his pass protection was as strong as many people say, because I think a lot of people grade pass protection as get in the way and was the result good, as opposed to was the technique sound and will that translate to NFL defenders and coverage types. And I think there's some good reps on his tape, but there's a lot of dropping his head, making blocks where he's trying to backdrop people or looking like he's doing some of that. The punch isn't as strong as it needs to be. Overextending into blocks. Things that, like, when people said that Deonta Foreman was a really good blocker way back in the day, and I was like, yeah, but he drops his head so much that defenses are just going to, he's giving tells, and you're going to see where that becomes a problem. And I think that this is kind of the same thing with Coleman. Like, good enough to make a roster, maybe good enough to become a contributor on a situational level, but I'm not sold. He's going to have to show me he's far more explosive and a slightly better decision maker on runs towards, off guard and off tackle where he needs to get downhill a little bit faster.
Can he catch the football well enough to be a 3-down back if the right opportunity arises?
Yeah, I mean, if those things work out, like I said, and he can catch, he can be a elite receiver, screen passes, wide routes, things like that.
All right. Let's look at the other side of that coin. Kansas running back Leshon Williams. Is he underrated? Feel it or fuck it?
Absolutely, because he's a 5'9", 218 bowling ball with actual legit speed. He's got speed. He's got acceleration. He can catch. I like his vision. Overall, when I look at his game compared to Jonah Coleman, I just feel like that, Williams, to me, is already a player who could contribute off the bench right now on a depth chart that is maybe a little bit weaker. But, he's not far away as a blocker. When I look at what his blocking skills have to offer, he's actually already kind of in the committee tier, or very close to that. So situationally, if they know what they're going to assign him to that is playing with his strengths, he could be very good right away in that level, and I think he'll only improve. The biggest issue with him will be character, and it's not from the standpoint that he's a poorly behaved human being. It's just that he left Iowa and according to his trainer, was uninspired. When he arrived at Kansas, and the trainer said, he was out of shape and didn't seem to be loving the game, but we got him in the shape, and the love for the game returned very quickly, and he's a completely different player. Now, is this that maturity moment that we want to see from players, that they rebound? Or is our team's going to assess that as he doesn't really have the passion for the game, and he's a thermometer player to the worst degree, then we don't want to have on our roster because we're worried that when football doesn't become fun anymore, that he's going to abandon the game. That's what might be the questions people have. I'm not saying they are, but it's what I would anticipate that NFL teams were looking into. But he's an interesting player who on the field, I saw good things.
Yeah, did not get invited to the combine. We'll see how it plays out in the draft. While we were all watching Fernando Mendoza lead the way in Indiana, Kaelon Black was quietly getting the job done there. Is he underrated at running back? Feel it, fuck it.
Yeah, he's like a plus size Justin Forsett or similar size to Chester Taylor, like a back who can, if you don't know those guys, they're in that 5'10", 205 to 215 pound range. Guys who can run between the tackles, who have enough power to break a tackle, who finish strong, and they can attack in the contact, and they have just enough burst and speed to be on an NFL field as a contributor. He catches the ball well out of the backfield on screens and wide routes, and he's just a physical player who plays with an attitude and plays intelligently, and he's reliable. He's one of those guys that I think could have a 10-year career as a running back in the league, and maybe he has one or two seasons because of injuries that the team goes, you know what, we can lean on him for an extended period of time. We don't want him to be our every-year starter, but he might be able to give us that, 1,200, 1,300-yard season, and then we go, back to the original starter, or we draft someone who has more compelling physical skills.
Fair enough. Cade Klubnik, the Clemson quarterback.
Say that 10 times.
Boom. No, I'm not saying that
Yeah.
any more times. Is a boom bust fantasy pick and super flex. I guess part of this is, he's boomed and busted both during his time in college, is most notably busting last year. Feel it or fuck it.
Oh, totally feel it. He was the number one rated prospect among the quarterbacks coming into this year in a lot of locations, and because he had such a strong statistical season. And then this year he had a lot of drops. There were inaccurate passes and situations that seemed to be a habit. There's questions about the Clemson offense being one that prepares quarterbacks conceptually and intellectually for the league. That's not the quarterback's fault, but it is the nature of the beast of where they played. And Klubnik's somebody who has some mechanical issues to work out. His velocity sometimes suffers as a result. He also sails passes in the middle of the field because of it. They're actually two separate issues, but those are mechanical things that he needs to kind of work on and get straightened out. If he can get straightened out, develop a little bit more velocity to his game, he might be able to become a starter in the league. I think that there's some real skills there in terms of placing the ball, in terms of moving around in the pocket and creating on and off a structure that I think are compelling. But the baseline accuracy is a big question mark, and whether or not at a higher level of NFL play where defenses are disguising, whether he's going to be able to do that along with correcting velocity.
How often do we see that? A guy that comes in at this level of skill that winds up, all the pieces falling into place for him to become a starter? Is it as much luck due to circumstances as it is their skill?
It can be a little bit of both. I mean, I think Brock Purdy is maybe their higher end version of that. Drew Brees was someone that, teams maybe even questioned whether he was a second round pick.
Right.
And he was someone that kind of continued along those lines. Tom Brady, I mean, you could look at Tom Brady or Mark Bolger. Those are other players that you could kind of look in there, but you can see that they're few and far between, and a lot of the guys I'm mentioning happened 20 years ago.
Right.
So that's something worth noting.
All right. Jeremy's cousin, Jamori Maclin, could become a poor man's Jaden Reed. Feel it or fuck it.
I'm totally feeling this. I think there are a few receivers in this class who are kind of in that slot flanker role, probably more slot, who might not even be drafted, who could give you some.
He's not highly touted.
He's not highly touted at all. He played at North Texas, University of North Texas, and he was compelling there. He's good after the catch. I think he has solid hands. The routes running is pretty good. He's one of those guys that I think could earn opportunity on special teams, and if he hooks onto a team, maybe grows his game to the point that he becomes maybe a third or fourth wide receiver and maybe surprises us from there.
These things, stranger things have happened. I guess we'd say the same for Camden Brown, Georgia Southern wide receiver, a developmental sleeper. Feel it or fuck it.
Absolutely feel it. I think that he's well built. He's got speed. He played at Auburn originally, and Auburn gets the athletes in the SEC. I would if I were to characterize a team that gets athletes but maybe doesn't get great football players compared to some of the other schools, Auburn is one of those teams. They do get great football players too, but I would say that sometimes they're the team that you could stereotypically say, oh, this guy's an athlete, maybe he can figure it out and become a really strong football player at the next level, like good enough for college, but not necessarily the pros. Brown, though, is very good at contested catches. I see some route ability with his game. Would not be surprised. You remember Marlon Brown, the former
Vaguely, yes.
former Ravens receiver out of Georgia, who was catching touchdowns left and right for 1 year, but really didn't develop into a starter. But you could see the potential with his game. I think Camden Brown is kind of like the Marlon Brown of this class, who maybe he could have a little bit more luck and do a little bit more to take an opportunity that works out well initially and realize it into something that's stable and consistent.
Oscar Delp, Georgia tight end. Could he emerge as another George, the tight end. Could he be a top 3 option in this tight end class? I think most people have him outside the top 10. Do you think he has a lot more potential than that fielder fucker?
Yeah, I mean, I have him probably outside that as well, but it's not that far between him being one of the top 3 and where I have him ranked right now. And the reason is his hands. He catches the ball fine. Where he struggles to catch the ball is with contested catches where defenders deliver a substantial hit. That's when I haven't seen him win the ball like that. If he just shows that he's tougher at the catch point in those scenarios than I've seen, he would probably be vaulted inside the top 5 just for that alone. He's 6'5", 245. Right now you'd say, oh, well, that's not heavy enough to really be blocking in line at a highly effective level. But I think with 10 pounds, if he adds 10 pounds, it will probably be more feasible. He's a technically sound blocker. He's actually a very smart football player who runs good routes, blocks well at the level he's at right now, and catches the ball reasonably well. So he's more compelling than people realize.
How many, like in this class, it sounds like there's not a lot of space between some of these. Like if we're talking about a guy outside the top 10 who could possibly be a top 3, how many guys are in that same boat? Or is this pretty much the whole class? If it plays out that way, the talents and skills are there for all these guys to contribute. They just need to hit the right circumstance.
Yeah, they need to hit the right spot. But I would say that there's probably 8 to 10 guys that fit that description. And then there's guys who have a similar score as these 8 to 10, but I would say that they're pretty capped at what you're looking for. The one I don't understand, honestly, I'm just going to add this in here, is I hear some of my peers saying Eli Raridan is vastly underrated, but when I watch his blocking, I think he has significant lapses, even though he's been assigned to certain guys. I just felt like his blocking is not the way people describe it to be, and that he has minor lapses with his hands that might also interfere. So while he's a really strong athlete and he's 6'6", 245, and you could see a compelling opportunity for him to add weight, he might just need to be, maybe he's better off as one of those inline blockers who can just filter out and just be a Tyler Warren type, Tucker Kraft type. Maybe that makes him a little more compelling, but even then, the blocking concerns me.
Okay, I know you like Eli Stowers. I saw a question on the Blue Ski this morning about him, and questioning his experience level at the position and whether he's really belongs in the top tier. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm not really worried about that because most tight ends who come into college football aren't in sophisticated offenses playing tight end in high school. So the fact that Stowers was a quarterback, there are a lot of guys who've hung around the league who were quarterbacks for 1 or 2 years in college football.
Travis Kelce.
Yep. And then had multiple, and then they had, even when they weren't starters, they stuck to rosters because of the fact that they had those skills. Stowers, the only thing that's really concerning about his game is whether you can match him up on an offense where you need him to block at a higher level than he does right now. But I don't think he's as awful of a blocker as he's characterized when teams are saying maybe we should turn him into Mike Evans. I think he's got some competencies on the backside of formations as a stalk blocker, but he's going to have some improvement to make otherwise. But his route running is very strong. He sees zones very well because he was a former quarterback. His ability to catch the ball is as good as almost anybody in this class, especially in contested situations. And he might be one of the best runners after the catch in this class.
Desmond, not to be confused with Demond, which I did to open this show. Desmond Reid, Darren Sproles, 5'6", 174 pounds, very explosive. Feel it or fuck it, Sproles comparison.
Nope, we're gonna fuck it, but we're gonna say that he's maybe more of an aspiring Tariq Cohen, which may, for some people go oh, 6 of one half dozen of the other, and I'd say you got to watch a little closer. Yeah, yeah. But Tarek Cohen had some good moments with the Bears, some good games. I think that Desmon Reid is a compelling player who, matched up in the right situation, might be able to give you a lot as a scat back and a return specialist.
All right, fair enough. So here's a little broader one. Public and team expectations about quarterback development is like a marriage. Feel it or fuck it.
Yes, feeling that. Okay, because let's look at it this way. The first year that quarterbacks come into the league and they get an opportunity and they perform well in that first season, it's kind of like the honeymoon period of a marriage, where like everything's being idealized, nothing seems to be wrong. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop, but you don't really want it to. You don't think it's going to do that, and you're just like, you're ardently passionate about the other person. And then after the marriage has been around for a little bit a while, and real life hits, like defenses begin to adjust.
I feel like this is a Jaden Daniels attack. I don't know.
It might be, or a Baker Mayfield in the past, right. Desmond Ritter, or Jake Locker, Drew Lock, lots of guys. When you suddenly defenses adjust, and the variable there is that's real life hitting. That's how real life's going to be in the NFL. Suddenly the fans start pointing the finger at the quarterback, the scouting stat, the coaches and the front office. Maybe they start to sour a little bit, or they expect this quarterback to work and figure it out, but they got to figure it out. They try to help nominally, but they're really more about blaming at this point. And then you've got fingers pointing, you've got problems. People are now like suddenly going, wait a minute, this isn't who we thought we had. And then neither the quarterback is able to adjust, and now you have a comfort level, that deep level of comfort that you have with a good marriage, where it's like, you have that deep level of comfort, and you have these really high moments that are great, but you learn the value of teamwork, you learn how things fit together, you learn how people fully are, and the strengths and weaknesses, and it works out, and you can end up having a championship. But if you don't do that, you're still stuck in the blame stage and the suddenly life hit, and now you don't know how to figure this stuff out. Then there's a divorce coming, and then there's lots of hand wringing and therapy appointments and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of what happens here, is that a lot of teams are terminally stuck in the first two stages, where it's like the first year is like, this guy can't do any wrong. He's an elite player. He's going to be awesome. You even got former quarterbacks in the media who say all this because clickety, clickety, clackety, click, put a little bit more dollars in my basket, type of thing. And then, year two, it's like, oh, you mean they adjusted? Oh, they don't look so good? Then the quarterback's like, well, here's why this guy might fail. Clickety, clackety, clickety, click. That's kind of, I think, what happens here. And Sam Darnold apparently is one of the few who had some pretty good marriage therapy, or he just got kicked out of the house and he found himself a great spouse, very recently, but worked on his craft, but he survived the Jets, where he was like, hey, I need some help. We might need an exorcism here. And the coach is like, I'm too coked up worrying about I'm trying to medicate here just to avoid the situation I'm in. Allegedly.
Let me help you there.
Allegedly coked up. Yeah, he looked coked up. Let's look at it that way.
I thought it looked more meth to me, but hey,
might have been. Hey, yeah, exactly. I don't know either, but he definitely looked. He definitely looked like he was seeing something too.
All right, so that's a fair assessment. The Feel It or Fuck It podcast, much like a marriage, we grow together and have yet to grow apart. Because I'm never going to let you go, Matt. That's true. Check out the rookie scouting portfolio, mattwaldman.com. Check out Matt at Matt Waldman on the X device. Tons of great content posted all the time. Gives a little insights into things. I find it very useful. Find me there as well at Football Die Hard. Both of us on Bluesky as well. For the draft next week, we've got coming up. I know, Matt, you and I are going to jump on with Sigmund Bloom for a little live streaming at the Football Guys, the Audible channel, I believe it is. I'll be covering the draft for SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'll be doing wrap-up shows Thursday night, Saturday night, from the time the draft is done for a couple hours. So
I'll join you there at some point, I'm sure.
Might see some Matt Waldman on there, I'm pretty sure. So it'll be a great time to get caught up on these guys, and then they'll have helmets on. We can wave the green flag and start playing some fantasy football in earnest. And I can't wait for that. Thank you very much, Matt. Love you. Goodbye.
Love you. Goodbye.